Today I'm showing how to make a self-demonstrating Animotion mask display for your store. This demonstration is using the Dark Harvest Animotion mask, but the mechanical ideas I show you can be used on any Animotion mask you choose. Let's get started. First, you'll need to remove the skin. Carefully separate the foam from the underskull, keeping the skin intact. Once it's free, set it aside. Now that the skin has been removed, use scissors to cut the Velcro straps from the underskull. Moving forward from this point, you'll need a basic set of tools as well as some specific items. The tools you should have are a saw, a hammer, a drill and drill bits, pliers, and a hacksaw. The specific items you'll need are a hinge, some drywall screws, ferrule locks, expansion springs, and some bicycle cables. Use some screws to mount an expansion spring to the jaw. This will ensure the mouth closes after each opening. Next, measure the width of the head opening and cut a crossbar. I've used a piece of 1x3. Anchor the crossbar with 2 screws on each side. If the wood splits, you'll need to drill a pilot hole first. Next, you'll create a pair of brackets using aluminum stock that will hold the cable and the housing in place. A long bracket holds the cable housing, and a smaller U-shaped bracket holds the cable itself. When it comes to cabling, the object is to keep the cable and the housing in alignment. When the cable and housing are out of alignment, you'll create drag, and the result of that is diminished function in the mechanism. Always keep your cable and housing in alignment. Now drill a hole in each bracket just large enough for the cable to slide through. Be sure to keep your holes in alignment. Now it's time to make a foot pedal. I've used some thin plywood, 1x3, screws, and a hinge. The pedal works by pulling the cable on the foot end and opening the mouth on the other. I've written the dimensions on this model for you. These measurements are only a suggestion. You can use whatever sizes will work for you. Once the pedal is assembled, you'll need to drill some holes for the cable and housing. Drill a cable-sized hole all the way through the top plate. Then drill a housing-sized hole halfway through. The reason is, you want the cable to pass completely through the top plate while the housing is held in place. This cross-section illustrates the principle of the housing held in place while the cable moves freely. Then drill 2 cable-sized holes at the top of your foot pedal. Remember to align them with the hole in the top plate. You'll probably need to trim your cables and housing to fit your mechanics. I recommend a Dremel with a fiberglass cutting disc for both cable and housing. If you don't have a Dremel, you can use pliers to cut your cable and a hacksaw to cut the housing. You want to avoid fraying the end of your cable. I will usually use a tiny drop of super glue on the end of the cable to keep my cut cable end in good shape. If your cable end looks like this, you won't be able to finish, so retrim. Now you're ready to install the cable. Separate the cable from the housing and fish the cable through the eye opening of the mask through the holes of each bracket. Pull the cable all the way through. At this point, you can tug on the cable to test the mask function. If everything works to your satisfaction, slide the housing back onto the cable. Now it's time to use your ferrule locks. This is how a ferrule works. There are 2 tunnels in the ferrule. You fish the cable through one tunnel, then back through the second tunnel, leaving a loop. To lock the cable in place, crimp the ferrule with pliers. Fish the cable through the hole in the top plate and pull out all the slack in the cable and housing. Loop the cable through the ferrule and the openings in the foot pedal. Once the cable is looped through the ferrule and the pedal, double check and pull all slack out of the cable and housing before you crimp the ferrule. Once you've pulled out the slack and the ferrule is locked, test the function. If all is working, you're ready to re-glue the skin with super glue. Place the skin back on the underskull. When the skin is in place, use small amounts of super glue to reattach the mask. Be careful not to use too much. You don't want to lock any of the mechanics you just worked so hard to build. The super glue should dry almost instantly. And there you have it, a self-demonstrating Animotion mask display for your store.